All right, so welcome to our first show, or is it our second show of 2026, where I am going to get to hang out with my co-host, and we're gonna get into it. We're gonna drill him with some questions. So, Tom, I've had the privilege of going through your process, and frankly, your approach is kind of, it's kind of in your face, right? Because you're basically telling people who've been doing sales for this way, like, hey, there's a better way to do this. So, why do you think your approach is more effective than, telling me, hey, you've been doing this for 20 years and I have a better way?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if necessarily it fits with everybody, Adam.
Okay.
Our approach is for businesses that are very relationship based. In other
Hmm.
words, like you're getting most of your business through connections, introductions, and referrals. You're using even other channels, perhaps for other lead generation, but you really don't know how to use those inputs, turn them into other like outputs, or like leverage the people that aren't ready to buy from you, like what to do with them so that it continues to feed its own pipeline. And this strategy works really, really well, but you really have to have an infrastructure set up accordingly to take advantage of it. But when the when it turns over, and Adam, you've been through it before, you know how there's a difficulty to it. It's a little bit of a push to get it started. But when you start trading every no and not ready into an ecosystem that provides value to everybody, and the pipeline starts to feed itself, it's a complete different approach than relying only on lead generation for net new.
Right. So also, I wrote the perception, like, hey, I met with this person 6 months ago. They weren't interested, and now we're no longer part of each other's universe. Right. So what makes people say, okay, well, even though, hey, I didn't want to engage with you, I can potentially make an introduction for you.
Yeah, well, a lot of it has to do with this, right? Like understanding how to like manage relationships in the first place. So when you do a discovery call with somebody, the purpose is not to force them into like buying from you. Of course, we want everybody to buy from us, but that's not the reality. The reality is
Hmm.
asking good questions and establishing some rapport, building like a relationship and having like an excellent conversation to uncover if they're ready to like actually for your services or even need your services, or if they don't, what do they need and who can you connect them to in your network that could provide value all the way around? When you have those questions, right, that allows you to open the door in taking somebody that may not be ready for your services, introducing them to other people in your network, and that primes or should I say ignites the power of reciprocity. When you
Hmm.
start giving referrals and contextual introductions to other people in your network, they tend to want to do the same for you. And if you can
Right.
manage,
And it's also important that you're doing that in the pretext that, hey, this person's probably not going to buy from me, but I'm going to do this anyway.
yeah, for sure. So the normal way of sales, right, is to like do this, Adam. Like if they don't need me, then goodbye. Or at best, right, put them into a horrible nurturing sequence that has like very, very low probability of closing. And in fact, some nurturing systems are so bad that it actually damages relationships instead of improves them, right? Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not against nurturing. Nurturing can work really, really well. My point and approach is this: if somebody's not ready for like you, find a way that you can bring value to them as well as key people in your network so that you can leverage the law of reciprocity. And let me tell you, that is the most powerful rule or law you can apply in leveraging your business. You get that going, I mean, hey,
Absolutely.
it's amazing.
And you're a strong proponent of the introductions, connections, and referrals, right? Absolutely, I agree with that. And however, you've also said, hey, you know what? You don't need to go to all these networking events. However, what do you say in order to establish my initial network? that I need to go to all these events to create that pool of people that I can then start this process.
Yeah, I use what's called a garden approach for the whole thing, right? And that is this, right? Like your job as a business, especially if you're in the SMB world, a small
Mhm.
business world, is this. First of all, if you haven't established like really, really strong relationships yet, the way that you have to do it is like you've got to manage a very large pool to find like your top partners, right? Your top referral partners. But that doesn't like happen out of the blue. They don't just like willingly volunteer and then tomorrow, like you guys are trading referrals back and forth. It takes time. So in
Mhm.
order to grow a garden, you have to first plant a bunch of seeds. You've got to go find people that you know and like, you know what I mean, that are in your ecosystem. What I mean by ecosystem is you got to find people that do something synergistic to what you're doing and that have access or targeting the same audience as you. If they don't have
Mhm.
those two qualities, it is literally pointless to ask them for introductions and referrals. Again, they've got to have access and like talking to people
Right. And you
in.
both got to be fishing from the same pond, right?
You got to be fishing from the same pond. Exactly. If you don't have that, waste of time. But let's say you create this pond, Adam. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
You got 100 fishies out there in your little pond. You know what I mean? Your job is to send them personal messages, right? Approximately like twice a month or once a month to remain top of mind and educate each other about what's going on so that you guys both can keep your ears and eyes open to you. When you start getting a system where you're engaging like with this many people, two things will happen to extremes. So let's say you had 100 people in there. Out of the 100, let's say three, four, five of them are really going to show their hand and saying, like, Adam, let's go back and forth. Let's do a lot of trading. Let's find some good opportunities for each other.
Mhm.
There will also be another like 5 to 10 people that I call the weirdo category, and they either don't respond at all or respond negatively, like, Adam, stop emailing me, or something like that. But ultimately, your job is to tend the garden, find the ones that are really going to drive introductions and referrals on the
Right. And
norm.
stay away from the people that are going to seek restraining orders.
Stay away from the weirdos. You know what I mean? Like, stay away from them, you know? Yeah, yeah. And that ecosystem is huge. So, by the way, you never stop reaching out to the larger ecosystem. In this case, we use the number of like 100, but it could be more or less than that. You don't stop that. But my point is, get rid of the weirdos, and the people that are really outstanding, treat them different. Take them out of the sequence that like legitimately, or the outreach system that's, that you're reaching out every 2 to 4 weeks or something like that. Those select
Mhm.
few people that we call super connectors, pull them out and manage them individually. Why? Because, Adam, for businesses like you and I, small businesses, and most people out there on the planet, not kidding you, it only takes about 5 human beings on planet Earth that's feeding you good referrals on the regular to get all the business that you need, or at least 80% of it. The rest can be
Mhm.
made up with just basic other channels to be managed.
Right. So this is definitely, it doesn't, it's not all of the demand gen, but you're saying this should be potentially 80% of your top of the funnel demand generation.
Or said another way, right? It would be this: do this first. And if you
Mhm.
actually master this part of it, you're more than welcome to start adding or investing in other channels that you can really drive business. But the first things first, if you're not dominating a referral based system, you're missing the most essential piece of growth for solo, micro, and small business owners. You must have that before anything else.
True, but I understand from your perspective that, and you've proven that is correct, but the traditional sales mentality is not that. It's just the opposite. Hey, here's my list of target accounts. I'm going to go after them with a drip campaign and try to penetrate these accounts through traditional means.
Yeah, without a doubt. And it's unfortunate, but like the fact of the matter is, and I don't need to tell you this, and any other small business owner listening to this knows this is a fact, right? And that is getting a contextual introduction or a referral, the close rates are much higher, right? The
Absolutely.
conversion rates are better. You usually get paid more. They don't back and forth with you asking a million questions or expecting the world. Their stickiness is better. Your LTV tends to be higher. The list could go on and on. So, my point to you is, can you gain clients in other ways? You bet. But they are usually volumatic and laced with like some side effects that you got to deal with. And that is, you're more literally like looked at as a commodity instead of a relationship. Referrals are huge for getting around all of that. Just so happens that as you start to mature into a bigger business, you may need additional channels to support the amount of volume for scaling growth. Let me
Okay,
go
so,
back to it.
let's expand on that. So if I'm
Yeah,
a small business, very, two person to five person, I can see this wording. However, now I've done really well and I'm doing, 5 mil, 6 mil, 10 mil a year. Does that system still work for larger companies?
you bet. So referral-based systems are 100% scalable, meaning in several different ways. But think of it like this, Adam. Let's say you're a solopreneur first, then jump into a micropreneur. And as
Hmm.
like a micropreneur company, guess what? You're the main sales guy. You know what I mean? Like you don't
Right.
have sales reps or anything like that first. So first, one thing is scalable for the referral-based system is this. Well, once you're tapped out, hire a BDR or hire like an account manager or something like that. And every, like, let's say production unit, which is a raw way of saying a human being responsible for sales, you know what I mean, can replicate the referral model and scalable with just human beings. You can also leverage systems, processes, and technology to do more out of just the company as well for referral based. But just keep in mind this, referrals are always scalable so long as you are leveraging some type of process or system. If you can't leverage a system, then it's not scalable.
Right. So what I heard, which is fantastic, is that, hey, I'm going to implement the system. I'm going to do it so well. I'm going to be maxed out, and then I can potentially hire someone to repeat the process.
Hire somebody or something. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
don't forget that you can really start to like rev things up by leveraging technology or improving systems or whatever it may be. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. So what would you say to our audience that, this all sounds great. I'm not quite ready to do this. Is there an interim step they could take to get ready?
Okay, so two things I would say to the audience is first one is this, get over yourself. And that is like your job to grow your company, like as a solo, micro, or small, is to get yourself out there. So, like, get over yourself means this, right? You're going to have to ask for business. You're going to have to ask for introductions and referrals. It doesn't come out of the blue. You are not a special snowflake, and nobody really cares whether you like sink or swim. You must every day wake up and ask other people for help. Just so happens that reciprocity includes you caring for other people as well, which means you got to do good for others too. So
Absolutely. So
yourself.
how would you leverage that with existing clients, right? Because it's a little different, right? Because they're already purchasing your service, and now I'm going to ask them for additional introductions to other people.
Yeah. So timing is everything when it com's to
Mhm.
asking referrals for your clients, right?
Right. Of
First of all, you never ask a client for a referral when things are going bad.
course.
Not a good point, right?
Right.
So, like the main thing is like when you celebrate a victory for a client, it must be part of your normal everyday practice to at least question, right? Should I ask now for an introduction or a referral? You know what I mean? Should I
Mhm.
do it? The answer is not always yes. But my point is, you must identify trigger points of asking. Timing is critical for asking.
Always, you're going to be able to read the room.
You got to read the room. Yes.
100%. And we do that with our existing client base where clients will send us an unsolicited email. Hey, this was fantastic. Your team was great. I loved working with Gabby and Justin and your team. And then what we'll do is then we'll take that and leverage that to get a public Google review.
Yeah, it's huge, right? So like
Right.
you got to control the environment too. So like you just brought up a good point, and that is figure out how to ask like how they feel about like what has happened either for the entire engagement or part of the engagement or something like that. If you're getting fantastic remarks, you know what I mean? You can go the next step. Hey, could we use that quote for our marketing? You know what I mean? Are you okay with
Absolutely.
that? Do you know anybody else that could benefit from something like that? Like that's the timing like associated with asking for referrals, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, going back over to like let's say Adam, like on the other side of just general people that you met that could give you introductions and referrals, please keep in mind that that's also based off of timing, but a different type of timing than clients. Because let's go back to the sea of 100 people that we're reaching out to.
Hmm.
Referrals, remember, come from them actually hearing something from somebody they talk to about a problem or a need that could be satisfied by you, right? Because you have no idea or control over the like who and how they talk to people, those 100, you gotta stay in touch with all 100 on a normal basis because what you're doing is playing a numbers game. Out of the 100 people, if you ask, hey, have you heard anything about this lately? Out of the 100 people, you know, maybe only 1 to 3 of them will go, I have. You know what I mean? Let me go ahead and make the referral. But if you're not reaching out to enough people, you will be very unlikely to get that timing to cross paths. Does that make sense?
It does. So when you saying stay in touch with that 100, is that done mostly through email? You're doing phone? What's your recommendation there?
Yeah, anything's fair game. I love email because it's easily tracked, but DMs,
Right.
text, calls, virtual meetings, anything is fair game. I would set a couple rules for anybody listening to this, and that is this. Number one, right? You should be reaching out to 10 to 20 people per day, no matter what that's going to be. You know what I mean? Per day, right? More than that, it's going to cause a few different issues. And that is now you're going to be possibly flagged for spam. You know what I mean? You may have to actually resort to, let's say, like unsubscribe buttons and things like that. It'll take away the personalization. But on the other side of things, God forbid it works. And let's say you reach out to 500 people in a day. Well, who's going to manage it when they start to reply? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So then you have a show, you know what I mean, after that, trying to figure out how to like answer all the emails and whatever it is, right? My point to you is this. If you have a group of 100 or 500 or 1,000 people, set them up into little mini groups, assign a day that they need to be like managed, and then do it so that it flows sequentially. In other words, drip it out. You know what I mean? The difference is I wouldn't go with like automated drips that release all of your personalization if you're a super small company. What sells is you. So if you sound like a robot, you're going to get zero return. You just got to figure out how on each day, this is only going to take me 10 to 15 minutes. I know exactly who I need to reach out to, and I can do it quickly but personalized.
Yeah, and then it gets back to being authentic, right? Because if you're picking up, oh, they send me a spam or an automated email, that's not going to be effective.
100%. And the worst thing that could ever happen for growth for a small business is this. Your email gets completely spammed, which means that your outreach is completely gone,
Yeah,
even
it's
for
blocked forever. You can't. They hit
your
unsubscribe. They don't want to hear from you. Do not pass go. Do
you're
not
done.
collect $200. Go away.
That's right. You don't exist. Bye-bye. Like it's
Bye
gone.
bye.
Yes. The second thing is this. The moment that people pick up, if you're a solo, micro, or small business owner, the moment that people pick up that you're trying to leverage technology or like try to get around them and just use you, they will not talk to you anymore. So be very careful. If you're going to be leveraging technology like AI and stuff like that, which can be a tremendous help, but be very careful. People do have a fine eye for it. And if they feel like they're being abused or taken advantage of, you will lose that personal relationship. And that is a no bueno for any small business.
Absolutely. All right. So, what are some of the key takeaways for the people to help them achieve their 2026 sales goals?
Yeah, key takeaways is this. If you haven't mastered a system to collect and cash in on connections, introductions, and referrals, that comes first. Don't chase squirrels. Get that taken care of first. Most of your actual client acquisitions are going to first come from connections, introductions, and referrals. That will always continue. But
And when you say a system, it could be a CRM, but it could even be an Excel spreadsheet, as long as it's a system.
hell yeah. By the way, I've got one client of mine right now, then not kidding you, he lays index cards on a table just in order, and all he does is reach out to them in the order and
Based
shuffle.
on the index card.
Like, but
But
it's a,
Tom, are the index cards at least colored?
they are, and they
Okay, there we go.
actually has stickers that he puts on it. You know what I mean? If they give him a referral or something like that.
Right.
Still a system. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be like all shiny for it to work, but you got to figure out a way that you're going to keep in touch with all these folks and really manage the relationships properly. You know? Huge. If you can't take control of your connections, introductions, and referrals, you are destined to fail or struggle your ass off as a solo, micro, or small business owner.